The Somerton Man. We have a number of Australian viewers, and the plan is to include more Australian cases if I can. This is possibly the most famous John Doe from Down Under. The Somerton Man died alone on Somerton Park Beach in Adelaide, South Australia in 1948. But who he was has always remained a mystery. Even though it's been more than 70 years, people haven't stopped trying to solve this case. He was found looking dapper in a brown suit, with a half-smoked cigarette resting on his collar. When he was last exhumed in hopes of identifying him, the police made this statement: "It's important for everybody to remember the Somerton Man is not just a curiosity or a mystery to be solved. It might be somebody's father, son, perhaps grandfather, uncle, or brother. And that's why we're doing this, to try to identify him." Police are hoping that DNA will solve this in the end. Somerton Man was found on his back in the sand, shoulders propped up against the seawall. That he was dressed so well in a suit and newly polished shoes was just more of a mystery. 2 apprentice jockeys were in the area and they saw him lying there the night before. But when they went to investigate, they said his arm moved, so they moved on thinking he was fine. It was odd in part 2, because if he chose to go somewhere to die, it was a weird place to do it. It was pretty public and had people often milling around the area. The examination of his remains raised more questions than it answered. All of the labels on his clothing had been removed, and he wasn't carrying any ID. They couldn't identify the cause of death, but it was considered to be unnatural. There's a theory he consumed some sort of rare poison that was able to disappear without a trace, leading to heart failure. He's described as being a well-built man, 40 to 50, 5'11", with gray blue eyes and brown hair that had begun to gray at the sides. Even his toenails were well-groomed. He was clearly not a homeless man, and for this reason, police believed someone would miss him and he'd be identified, but that just didn't happen. One weird aspect they found, however, is that his feet were pointed as if he had been in the habit of wearing high-heeled, pointed shoes. His calves were muscled also in a way that supports that theory. There were also suggestions that he could be a dancer. Others insisted he was a sailor or a spy. Some believed him to possibly be British. His clothes appeared to have come from America, so it's possible he was well-traveled. Many people over the years have called in tips, but all have led to dead ends. He had purchased a train ticket to Henley Beach, near Somerton Beach, but he didn't use it for some reason. Instead, he made his way to the beach by bus. They know his suitcase was found at the train station, and it contained some distinctive orange thread that had been used to repair the suit panels he was wearing, so they're positive it's his case. Nothing in the bag pointed to his name. One strange clue was in a hidden pocket inside of his suit, and inside was a rolled-up paper with the words, "Tamam Shud," which means the end or finished in Persian. It had been ripped from a book, and it was about a poem, about how we are on the earth to enjoy it. And when we are done, it's time to pass on with no regrets. The book it came from was discarded in a random car and was turned in by the man who found it. The book was seen as the best clue, and inside it was a phone number for a woman who lived nearby. When the police found her and questioned her, they described her as acting suspiciously. She reacted to the photo of the Somerton Man, but she claimed not to know him. The police, for years, attempted to question her, but she always refused. Eventually, an armchair detective uncovered her name, but by then Jessica Ellen Thompson had passed away in 2007, never disclosing the identity of the man or how she knew him. His post-mortem photos can be found online if searched. We don't show those on this channel, but I always tell you if they're there. It does appear they are trying to use DNA to find out who he was. He was exhumed on May 19, 2021. The Somerton Man was likely born in the late 1800s and has gone unidentified for 73 years. One-Eyed Jack. One-Eyed Jack was a man who was blind in one eye and was last seen hitchhiking in September 1978 near Boise, Idaho. The man who picked him up drove him to Tok, Alaska, where he stabbed the man to death. He took Jack and dumped him in the woods off the highway. Jack's identity, however, is unknown. The killer offered some information but he didn't know much. He said his name was either John or Jack, and that he had told him he was 32 years old. He mentioned having an Oregon's driver's license and claimed to have lost his eye in a logging accident. Later working at jobs washing cars in Colorado or Utah. Despite the fact this is so specific, they were unable to identify him. However, the man who was responsible for taking his life also mentioned that part of why he killed him is that he was so annoying and that he lied quite a bit. When asked why he killed the man, the suspect simply stated, "He was getting on my nerves." One-eyed Jack has gone unidentified for 42 years. If the age given was correct, we are looking for someone who was born around 1947. The Barstow Jane Doe. On February 9, 2010, a man was walking along Linwood Road south of Barstow looking for cans. Instead, he found a backpack. He decided to open it up, and inside was the head of a female wrapped in bags from Walgreens and Fiesta Foods. Unfortunately, there were no fingerprints on the sacks, or at least none that were usable. They were unable to identify her cause of death, most likely because only one body part has been found so far. The very way she was found, however, led to a determination of foul play. The perpetrator also did post-mortem damage to her face in hopes of blocking identification. Thankfully, that doesn't rule out possible recreations and especially DNA. In September of 2021, it was announced the San Bernardino County Coroner's Office had been working with Barbara Ray Venter in order to identify the decedent known as the Barstow Jane Doe. DNA testing has confirmed that she has Hispanic ancestry and distant relatives in Mexico. She was believed to be about 19 at the time, or perhaps could have been a little younger. This would place her birth date around 1991 to 1996. Someday this will hopefully lead to her identification. Police did state that the recreations may be further off than usual because of the damage that was done. It will likely fall to DNA to make a solid determination as to who she was. In September of 2021, it was announced that her DNA was being processed. So far, all we know is she is Hispanic and has distant relatives in Mexico. The person who did this to her also remains free. One can only hope there was DNA that will also lead to him. Her dental records were taken and can be used to confirm or rule out any possible matches. They do show that she received good dental care. The Barstow Jane Doe has gone unidentified for 11 years. That's it for today. Thanks, everybody. Take care of yourselves and each other.